Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Ask an Owner webinar. All right, so my name is Stephen Allman. I'm a program manager for Fourth, and I will be today's host for the Ask an Electric Vehicle Owner webinar. We've got a really awesome panel for you guys today. We've got three EV owners, Barbara Randolph, Crystal Marie McDaniels, and Andrew Diamond. They have a very different background of what brought them to EVs, each of them individually. So it's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all. All right, a little background about my organization, Fourth. So Fourth is a nonprofit trade association that focuses in four major areas. We work in industry growth and development, so we work with car manufacturers, charging companies to try to build out more infrastructure. We work in policy advocacy, so we try to make sure that the policies that are coming are going to really help accelerate electrification. And then we also work with demonstration projects that can be like an electric car share, different financing pilots for people who are driving TNC as in Uber and Lyft to get them into an electric vehicle and out of an internal combustion vehicle. We also do consumer engagement, where we kind of just try to do outreach with the public and educate people about electric vehicles. All right, so we've got some really awesome partners. And first off, I want to introduce Centralina. And Karina, would you like to give some more background about your organization?
Sure. Thanks, Stephen. So good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Karina Soriano, and I'm the co-coordinator of the Centralina Clean Fuels Coalition, which is housed at the Centralina Regional Council. So just a little bit of background about us. So the Clean Cities program is a Department of Energy established program fostering national economic, environmental, and energy security by working locally to advance affordable domestic transportation fuels, energy efficient mobility systems, and other fuel saving techniques and practices. Nearly 100 local coalitions serve as the foundation of the Clean Cities program by working to cut petroleum use in communities across the country. And about 82 or so percent of the total US population lives inside Clean Cities coalition boundaries. Additionally, Clean Cities is responsible for saving nearly 8 billion gasoline gallon equivalents through the implementation of diverse transportation projects since 1993. Each coalition is led by an on-the-ground Clean Cities coordinator, such as myself, who tailors projects and activities to capitalize on the unique opportunities in their regions. All coalitions do this through education and outreach around alternative and renewable forms of transportation fuel, infrastructure, technology, and vehicles. Each coalition varies slightly by the availability of fuel types and the interests of regional stakeholders. The biggest asset of the local coalition is the network and the stakeholders who make up the coalition. Clean Cities stakeholders, through their coalitions, have access to national labs, national fleet partners, as well as the connection that comes with other coordinators doing slightly different projects across the country. So coordinators serve as both educators and problem solvers for their stakeholders. We conduct a lot of education and outreach, as well as provide technical assistance to fleets in our areas, building great local partnerships along the way. While primarily fleet-focused, coalitions also aim to educate the public and their local officials to help everyone make more informed decisions to lower their transportation costs and effects on the environment. So a little bit about our particular state. So North Carolina's Clean Cities coalitions are housed within councils of governments. So we have a unique regional view of program implementation. And as you can see, North Carolina is served by three coalitions. We have the Land of Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition in the Asheville area, Centralina Clean Fuels Coalition, my coalition, in the greater Charlotte region, and then the Triangle Clean Cities covers the capital area. And we have a breakdown of the Centralina coalition counties over to the right of the slide. While we don't geographically cover the whole state, we all work with statewide and Southeast regional partners to assist the rest of the state. So Clean Cities is the technology integration arm of the Department of Energy's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. Quite a mouthful there. Clean cities are fuel neutral entities working to promote EPAC identified alternative fuels and deploy infrastructure. So we can right size solutions for fleets and help stakeholders make the right decisions around transportation. We work with fleets of all sizes, so light to heavy duty. We also assist end users, such as yourself, with understanding mobility choices and new technology, such as micromobility, autonomous vehicle technologies, multi unit development, and others. So, for this project with Fourth and the City of Charlotte, the core goal of the project aimed to educate consumers around electric vehicles, but also to acknowledge and deal with the issue of electric vehicle availability in North Carolina. Centralina and Fourth reached out to over 20 dealerships for this project to establish contact, inquire if they already had EV training for their salespeople, and offer additional training and partnership moving forward. We also have helped with establishing target audience groups, advertising and messaging, as well as establishing and continuing local connections. We solicited input from external groups, organized the schedule, created and targeted key public groups to ensure they were aware of the webinars, and reached out to several dealerships, as mentioned above, to ensure that there are electric vehicles for y'all to be able to test drive after the webinars. So Centralina plans to continue working with these dealerships into the future to assist with dealership training if requested, and partnership for events such as ride and drives. So if you would like more information or to speak with a coordinator about your transportation options, please feel free to visit our website or contact myself or my colleague, Jason Wager, for more information. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Erica Ruane at the City of Charlotte. Erica?
Thank you so much, Karina. And thank you to everybody joining to listen to our EV webinar. And thank you to Fourth and Centralina for helping us to put it on. And a special thank you to the 3 EV owner participants for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it. Okay, so I just want to quickly give a little bit of background for why we're doing this from the City of Charlotte. My name is Erica Ruane. I am the City of Charlotte Sustainability Coordinator. And in 2018, in June, City Council unanimously adopted the Sustainable and Resilient Charlotte by 2050 resolution. And this resolution did 3 things. It set a goal for the city to fuel all fleet and facilities by zero carbon sources by 2030. Secondly, it called for Charlotte to become a low carbon city by emitting less than 2 tons of CO2 equivalent per capita annually. And third, it requested a plan on how we were going to reach those goals. That one is my favorite part. And I say that with a little laugh, because a lot of times local governments have passed lofty goals like this, but they don't have a plan on how to get there. And our council was very particular in saying this is not just going to be a goal that we get praised for setting. We want a plan on how to reach that. So the CAP, the Strategic Energy Action Plan, that was unanimously adopted in December of 2018, is our plan for how we're going to reach those goals. And it's focused on buildings and transportation, which are the sectors with the highest emissions for Charlotte. So under the CAP on the left-hand side, you'll see that we have transportation goals. And this includes everything that has to do with electrifying our fleet and providing more sustainable modes of transportation, like bike lanes and e-buses. And we also have public EV charging stations located around the city. We have 40 stations with 72 ports, and these are all free to charge at currently, and this is available to the public. So we are trying to get the word out there and we're trying to encourage EV adoption in our community. At the same time that the CAP was being passed, we were announced as one of the winners of the American Cities Climate Challenge. This Bloomberg Philanthropy Challenge gave us resources to accelerate and strengthen the goals that we had already set for ourselves in building transportation through the CAP. So the American Cities Climate Challenge supports our CAP work. Now the CAP has 11 linked action areas. 6 of them focus on municipal operations and 5 are community-wide goals. And I put on the left-hand side there, action area 8 is to facilitate the rapid uptake of sustainable modes of transportation. And one of the tasks under that action area is task 2, which is to develop a promotion and awareness campaign around EVs. And that is what we're doing today, or part of what we're doing today. So the American Cities Climate Challenge also focuses on buildings and transportation. And one of the transportation actions is called Market Transformation for EVs. So that supports the CAP work as well. So these webinars, working with Fourth and Centralina through the Climate Challenge, will help us create more EV accessibility and availability at local dealerships. So we are excited to have everyone here and excited to hear more from our EV owners. So thank you again. And I think I hand it over to Steve again. Steven.
Yep, perfect. All right, well, thank you so much, Erica and Karina. I really appreciate that background, and shout out to NRDC, the National Resource Defense Council as well. So going over just a program overview, Karina kind of touched on it. Another facet to this program is that we want to work with dealerships and encourage them to have more EVs on their lots. We also want them to have some buy-in in this process and feel like they want to go electric as much as their consumers do. So for the second goal, or for the first goal, we've actually worked with these dealerships, the 4 mentioned on the slide above, and we'll share these slides with you all, to have electric vehicles on their lots that are charged, ready to go for test drives, if people want to go and stop by. Now, the second goal is to actually get folks who haven't driven electric vehicles, who are considering buying one, or just want to try one out, to actually go to the dealership and show these dealership folks that there is demand for electric vehicles and that it's worthwhile to have them on their lots. So we want to encourage people to go take test drives by offering $100 Visa gift cards. So if you haven't driven an EV before, this is a great opportunity. I highly recommend you stop by one of those dealerships, take one for a spin, just take a quick picture with the car you drove and send it to myself or Karina. The email is below. Even if you can't get to a dealership and you just have a friend that's got an EV, send us a picture of that too. But if you know of anyone who hasn't driven one and is kind of interested, this would be a great time to send them there. All right, so let's meet today's panel of EV owners. If everyone can go ahead and turn on your webcam so we can all see you, and Karina will be moderating this section as well. Hey, everyone. All right, so today we have Barbara Randolph. Barbara is on the left of the screen. We have Andrew Diamond. Andrew, Andrew's a little bit more to the right. Karina's in the middle. And we have Crystal Marie McDaniels is on the right, and myself. Now, before we dive in and hear a little bit more from these folks, we want to hear a little bit from you. So we're going to do a quick poll, and then we'll jump to the EV owners. All right, thanks a lot for being here, everyone. All right, and we'll probably take about 30 seconds to answer each question. So once you've answered the third question, feel free to get up and freshen up your coffee or whatever you need to do. All right, so after this question, we'll dive back into it. thank you all for taking the time to provide your feedback. All right. Awesome. Thank you again. And if you have any questions, please submit them in the attendee chat. And if it's specifically for one of the presenters, please make sure to include their name. Thanks again. All right. And Crystal, you've got a video. So let's see. Can we get that played, Crystal?
Welcome to our home. Getting ready to go out on a day of activities in an EV. Where should we charge? We're headed to the grocery store, to the library, and out to eat. You ready to go? It's really, really important to be able to have convenience, availability of chargers, and be able to get things done that don't get in the way of my day. I already have a 1-year-old who's starting to walk everywhere. We have Cheerios flying. It's so much easier when I can plug in and not think about it. One of the great things about charging stations is they're usually placed at locations where moms and folks tend to go. So they're at grocery stores, they're at restaurants, places that you would naturally be going anyway. So really it's just an extra few seconds just to plug up and go, and the next thing you know, you have lots of miles and you're ready to go. For us, I find that the charge lasts longer than he does. All right, time to go see Dada.
All right. And Crystal Marie, would you mind turning on your camera and give me your spiel? And oh, thanks, Barbara.
Oh, sure. So that video was shot by Duke Energy about a year ago. So as you can see in the photo, my son is much bigger now and running around. What I love about being an EV owner is that I think that I'm not what people expect from an EV owner. In that I'm a woman, I am not someone. This is not something that I purchased like as a toy. It's very much a pragmatic purchase for me. And prior to purchasing this car, and I can slide here, prior to purchasing this car, I had a Chevy Cobalt that I drove pretty much until like the wheels fell off. And I'm a kind of person that purchases a car and like that's it for the next 10 years or however long possible. And people joke that my former car looked like a bumper car because I literally just drove a car. The whole purpose was from point A to point B. But in 2018, my husband and I became pregnant, and we lived right next door to a Tesla dealership in Los Angeles. And we decided, like, why don't we just test drive it for fun? We were looking kind of for safer cars anyway. And so I test drove a Model S, and I thought, oh, one day when I can afford it out, maybe I'll drive a car like that. And then fast forward, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where there's a much lower cost of living. And I was able to take advantage of federal tax credits as well as state. I was still a California resident, so I kind of was able to take advantage of a California state tax credit. And then my current employer, Duke Energy, also offers a $3,000 credit to people who purchase an EV. So at that point, it became much more affordable for me. We looked back into it, and then I purchased a Model X vehicle, or a Model 3, excuse me, not a Model X. At the time that video was shot, it was actually our last week in our apartment. And we lived in the South Park area where there were many public charging stations. So I want to say shout out to the city of Charlotte, because I actually didn't realize that people charged to park until I visited other cities, and I realized, oh, you have to pay to charge. So kudos to the city of Charlotte. They're all over uptown and in certain parts of the city. So anyway, at that time, I did not have a garage or a place where I could park. I charged in public places. My job at the time also offered a charger there, so I never had any issues with charge. I never ran out. And then oh, I see a note. Yeah, well, I'm enjoying the charging now while I can. And so then when we purchased a home a little further out in Charlotte, I had a garage, and so now I charge at home. And so I do think that if you have questions around what it's like to charge either at home in a single family home with a garage, or what it's like to charge in a public space, I can give you some insight around that too, and some tips and tricks and different apps that I've used that helped with that at the time. Fast forward to now, I've driven about 29,000 miles. It probably would be more, but since March, I've been working remotely at home. So I'm not charging at my at Duke Energy, which has lots of charging stations as well. I'm not charging there. I have taken some road trips to DC, and I think I stopped to charge twice, both times that I went. And both was at the time that I would need to stop to eat and walk around and shake my legs out anyway. So for me, the main I know many people who are EV drivers, they're very passionate about their vehicle, the focus on the environment, the focus on the cool tech and all the features, and all of those things are amazing to me. The more I learn about how the positive impact on the environment that EVs have versus gas-powered vehicles, the more I'm excited about my vehicle. But being truly transparent, I am truly someone that was just casually curious and then got to know the car and really learn the benefits afterwards. I was looking for a car that was safe, and because of the electric cars, the low center of gravity, they're extremely safe. They have a really I'm sure someone else here who's more tech savvy can speak to like the crumple zone situation, but I was looking for a car that was very safe. I was looking for that was convenient, and I was looking for a car that I could drive for a long time and that would be future proofed. And so one of the benefits of my vehicle, and I believe that this is true for some other electric vehicles, is that there are consistently software updates, which make me feel like every few weeks I'm getting into a car that has a new feature. And it's also my son loves the car. So, he loves that every now and then we can play Netflix from the screen there. So those are the things that I look for in a vehicle, things that are safe, convenient, and that will last for a long time. And the added benefit of the environmental impact is something that means a lot to me. And I am part of I think the last time I checked the stat, 96 or 98% of people who drive an electric vehicle that say they will never drive a gas-powered vehicle again. So if anyone has perspective on what it's like to have a family and have an EV, I'm happy to answer any of those questions. And I would love to preserve a lot of my 10 minutes to allow for questions that people may have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Crystal Marie.
Of course.
All right, Andrew Diamond.
Okay, good now afternoon. I guess my story is a little bit different. I've been driving electric or plug-in vehicles now for over 8 years, starting in 2012 when I got a 2013 Chevy Volt. My story really is that I guess I just had issues with the petroleum industry, with the pollution related to the petroleum industry, especially. I grew up on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and I was just very upset with the BP Deepwater Horizon incident and the millions and millions of gallons of crude oil that went into the Gulf of Mexico. As disturbing as that incident was, I was even more disturbed with their corporate reaction and just how they didn't take responsibility or really apologize well for that mishap. I've had kind of a tough, I guess, relationship with petroleum, even going back to when I was a kid during the era of oil embargo in the early 1970s. My dad was always cussing and screaming about how expensive gas had gotten, how it had gone from 29 cents a gallon to 49 cents a gallon at that point in time. And as a kid, that kind of impacted me. I felt that whatever it is that made my dad so mad, I didn't really want much of a part of. And it's interesting how things that you see as a kid maybe come back to later in life. So in 2011, I was at Charlotte Clean and Green, which was I guess, a festival of sorts that celebrated, things happening in the city of Charlotte in regards to environmental programs, Charlotte's recycling program, et cetera. And one of the things they had on display was the then new 2011 Chevy Volt. At that point in time, I learned about it, and I decided that was going to be my next car. And in 2012, I got the Volt. The Volt was a surprising vehicle in that it would go about 38 miles. I believe it was rated to go on electricity, and then it had a gasoline four-cylinder range extender engine that you could go, hundreds of miles on it if you wanted to, as long as you kept putting gasoline into the car. If you didn't have the opportunity to charge again. What I found was that 38 miles in rated range really equated to about 35 miles in the winter and 45 miles in the summer. And I had a commute to work that was about 32 miles, including, maybe a little side trip for lunch or something, 32 to 34 miles a day. I found that there was a stretch of time, I believe it was from March of 2013, or maybe it's April 2013, all the way through to November, where I used no gas at all for 7 months. And I was really shocked to find that was possible. I was a skeptic going into the car. I just thought, the 35 or 38 miles of range as it was rated, that would just never work for me. I thought I drove a lot more than I did. But the data proved otherwise. And so the second year I had the car, the tank actually is 8 gallons, and I did not use a tank of gas for the full year. And that just, and that was driving, a normal, say, 10 or 11,000 miles a year on the vehicle. I later got a Nissan Leaf as basically a company car in a couple of yoga studios that my wife and I owned. The next year in 2014, that year we also put solar panels on our house. So now I had the equivalent of my own energy generation on the roof of the house. And, I would joke to people that, those are my oil wells and oil refinery up there that I could basically, drill, pump, refine, and fuel my vehicles all on the roof of my house with no emissions at all. The Volt I got on a lease, in part because I was skeptical and because I felt that the technology was going to change really quickly. The other thing is I've always been kind of a car guy, and I've been more into kind of luxury performance cars and muscle cars through more of my life. Even though I've always had that nagging feeling in the back of my head about the gas consumption. And so, the Volt I thought was just a really great transition vehicle for me, but ultimately I wanted something I think with a little bit more performance, and maybe my ego got the better of me as well. So I wound up getting a Tesla Model S Performance in 2015. So now I've had that car for about 5.5 years. The benefits of driving an EV are just, there's really a multitude of benefits to it. And I'll talk a little bit, I guess, about the Model S first, is convenience. For a short period of time before I got the Volt, I actually considered even trying to use the bus system in Charlotte to get to work. And as I mapped out the route, it was going to take me 2 hours and 2 transfers to get to work each way, and that wasn't going to do at all. I was riding my motorcycle to work in order to save gas for a period of time. And then once I got the Chevy Volt, it reversed. That was that I would ride my motorcycle was the more expensive way to go. It was using more gas than the Chevy Volt was. And of course, the Tesla Model S uses no gas at all. I've since taken the Model S to as far north as Washington and Snowshoe, West Virginia. I've taken it to Atlanta. I've taken it to Florida on, I think, 4 times now. The Model S can go pretty well anywhere you want to go at this point in time. The Tesla Supercharger network which wasn't all that well developed. It was a challenge to even go to Atlanta, actually, when I first got the car. Now there's 3 chargers between here and Atlanta. So you simply tell the car where you want to go, and it figures out the route for you. So if I punched in that I want to go to Disney World, the car will say, great, okay, well, leave your house with it this full. Then you're going to stop in Columbia, South Carolina for about 20 minutes. Then you'll stop in Savannah for maybe an hour. Then you'll stop in Kingsland, Georgia before you get to Jacksonville. And it plans it all out. Now, I will say that the 9.5-hour drive to Disney World might become now an 11 to 11.5-hour drive with the charging stops. But, on the other side of it is I save, probably, $60 to $100 in gas. And on those stops, I get to, stretch out. I get to actually sit down and eat instead of like driving through and eating. Get to go for a little bit of a walk. I get to, have a good bathroom break and all that. And I arrive at the destination feeling refreshed and well rested instead of feeling like I've been beat up by my car for the last 9 hours or 9.5 hours straight. So these are things that really you kind of come into play. So from a practicality standpoint, I wasn't willing to give up comfort. I wasn't willing to give up convenience. I wasn't willing to give up performance, and I didn't have to give up any of that. With the Tesla, and really this is true actually more and more with pretty much any EV. The range has improved dramatically across the board with products from other makers, and the charging options have also improved quite a bit as well with other makers too. With that, I guess I'm also among that 90+% that say that they're not going back to driving a gas vehicle. I still have a gas truck, but it'll get replaced with a Cybertruck when Tesla releases that in 2 years. And that'll be, I think, the last vehicle in my house, probably ever, to be leaving 2 years from now. I've heard people say that going green or the Green New Deal or all of this is, it's really difficult. It's really expensive. I don't know how our country can do it. The fact of the matter is, it's just not that hard. It takes a little bit more money and a little bit more mindfulness to think about what you might want to do, but it's just not that difficult. I produce half of my own power for vehicles in the house on the roof, and I'm driving electric vehicles, and in another. I've done that in the last 8 years. In another 8 years, I expect I'll be producing more of my power, and I'll be 100% EV. So I've just been, delighted overall with the experience, and I don't see myself going back. Look forward to the questions. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. All right. And take it away, Barbara.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So I probably would say some of my experience and journey in this electric vehicle is similar to Crystal's. What I will say is I know nothing about cars, never knew anything about cars, was never interested in anything about cars. So Andrew's way ahead of me on that one. So I could possibly represent for some folks that type of profile that really made these decisions because it was just pretty much only gas out there, and it becomes, there's a myriad of options, almost to the point of confusion, and so it's almost a remote control sort of thing. But I'm also, similar to what Crystal had to say, I would buy a vehicle, I do take care of things, and literally use it till it can, to the max that I can. But in the case of Andrew, I am similar in the sense that it was starting to bother me more and more and more about my carbon imprint. So my experience, for example, literally when I purchased this car, which is what they call a PHEV, or a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, and I'll explain why maybe my profile would fit a lot of people, because I'm exactly that middle of the road. I was driving a Honda. I've always been a fan of Hondas. Always had great service, great maintenance, strong cars, I felt. Purchased their first Odyssey as a mother with three little babies, and it was the very first Honda Odyssey. Drove it for 21 years. So it just reached that point at 21 years in 2018. Wow, I think I really kind of need to buy a new vehicle. No, even remote control on the key thing, if you can imagine that. So I also realized, though, given how I was feeling, similar to what Andrew spoke about, I said, if I'm the type of person that really does take care of their cars, because they are investments, and if I have something for another 10 to 15, why on earth would I buy anything that uses gas? It made no sense to me, and I felt like at that point, given other work that I've been involved with for a long time, I needed to put my money where my mouth was in terms of my car. I could be mistaken about this, but I did research and had to reduce my decision to what was just my lifestyle. And that was a fairly short commute, which meant I live in Davidson, north of Charlotte. So if I headed down to Charlotte, average 20, 22 miles. And other than that, short trips. So the second factor that influenced my decision was cost. I may be wrong about this, but I had always had the impression that Teslas were quite expensive, so I automatically discarded that option. But I did find that a plug-in electric vehicle exactly fit that need when you've got a commute that would be anywhere between 35 and 42 miles. I make that commute on a single charge. So I found, when I purchased this in 2018, purchased it around April, I filled my car with gas twice. That was it. The cost of filling my gas tank was $12 each. What I have estimated, and it is a rough estimate, to be my increase in my monthly electric, because of plugging it literally like my cell phone in my garage standard outlet, and I'll explain that in a moment, maybe $5 to $6 a month. So this was far worth that investment, and the cost of the car meant was in my budget. Now, I needed that, so I needed that ability to drive on an only electric mode. And what probably was my greatest hesitation, and I could be wrong about this as well, but like, I am that profile of a person that is not a car aficionado, and probably, have in my head some myths that maybe a lot of people do. And two of those myths are the following. At the time, I was also had an ailing father in West Virginia. And so it's not a state that is keen on alternative energy. And so my greatest fear in having an all-electric vehicle was not being able to find enough charging stations in the state of West Virginia. I could be wrong about that. The second thing is, when you see public charging stations and you see even spots in certain parking lots that is a charging station, a lot of folks think that that is something that you have to have in your house. And so it was, for me, quite an epiphany to see that all I had to do is, I've got this cord and I've got a battery maybe about this big, and I plug it in to a normal 120 outlet, just like a lamp. So that was huge for me. So to make the fact that I just literally plug my car in like my phone is something now, when I talk to other people about this, seems to surprise them. And due to COVID, My driving obviously has lessened, so I have only filled my tank once in 2020 so far. So I think, to wrap it up, and I'll leave it for questions, is that I found that a plug-in electric hybrid matched a commute of 42 miles up and back, about buying the clarity. Okay, I may want to ask a repeat of that question. Short trips. I use minimal gas, and I can get the 42 miles on a single charge. I plug it in like my phone, but at the same time, if I'm making trips into states that may not be so electric car oriented, I don't want to feel panic that I can't find a station. So it simply it was the perfect profile for me in terms of lifestyle, cost of actually purchasing the vehicle, gas consumption in accordance with Andrew's valid concern, and our environment. And I have been extraordinarily pleased with the Honda Clarity because of that. So I'll open it up for questions. Someone asked a question, but I don't see it now.
Yeah, hey Barbara. We'll jump to questions with everyone, but Jason Wager had asked what your experience was like when you bought the Clarity. I think some people are curious about that because it's not specifically sold in North Carolina.
So is that a change now? I purchased this in 2018.
Oh.
I purchased this in 2018.
Well, that's how Jason asked the question. I'm curious. I know that specifically with cars like the Honda Clarity, if it's not available at the lot, you can always ask them to deliver one if you're pretty serious about buying it to that location. So yeah, I'm curious, just on the lot and there when you want to test.
Right. They had one on the lot for testing, but it was not the right. It was sort of a grade up all leather, and we can get to 100-degree temperatures here. So I did not want that sort of an option. And so I went to a dealer that I know well, and they could not source for me the car that I was looking for in 2018. So what they simply did was they pulled up an inventory within 60 miles, and then any dealership, even competing dealerships, and I narrowed down by color and the fact that there had to be some fabric content given the heat in North Carolina in the summers, and went to that dealership closest within the range that had exactly that car.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. It's cool that there was one there that you were able to test drive, though. That's super awesome.
Yeah.
So let's open the questions for everybody. Feel free to turn your webcams on, and if any of the attendees have questions for the presenters, now is a great time to type them in.
Thanks, Stephen. So I'll go ahead and just ask a couple preliminary questions. And again, repeating what Stephen said, if you've got any additional questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat, and we'll be monitoring that, and we'll get your questions answered. So once again, thanks to all of our panelists. We appreciate you being here today. And we've got just a couple questions for you that we've heard throughout the region on occasion. So starting with a question for Crystal, what was the challenge you found with charging elsewhere while living in an apartment? And I know that you had briefly mentioned that before, obviously besides the fact that you're not charging at home, but perhaps you could just talk a little bit about that for us.
Sure. So I was really fortunate, and this is something that I believe that the city of Charlotte is expanding on, and I know Duke Energy is as well. I was really fortunate in that I lived directly next to a public charging station. I considered it like my personal charging station, even though it was actually Whole Foods charging station. So that was really helpful for me. And as I mentioned earlier, both of the places that I've worked since I purchased my electric vehicle had workplace charging. So even if I just charged at work, it would have been sufficient. The range on my car is 260 miles. I very rarely need to go 260 miles. I usually just need enough to get to and from work. And I know many people that haven't purchased an EV, there's a lot of range anxiety and people want to know, how long does it take to get to full? Will I need to get to full? You typically just need however you need for your commute, which can easily be achieved within 30 minutes to an hour or so at any of the public charging stations that are available. And if you're looking to do a road trip where you need a full charge, then you would go to like a fast charging station, which I have done before. But yeah, I would say that depending on where you are, it certainly can be convenient. And I do think that, and I don't want to go too far into it, but I know one of the concerns that we're dealing with in Charlotte is that depending on the socioeconomic level where you are, there may be charging stations available to you. So there are some parts of Charlotte, South Park, Uptown, where there are a plethora of charging stations. And then there are other parts of Charlotte, East Charlotte, North Charlotte, some places with lower income, more working class communities where they don't have many public charging stations. So if I were someone looking to purchase an EV and I didn't have a charging station and I didn't have a garage in my home where I could charge, I would use some of the apps that are available out there that can help you identify what public charging stations are around for you. That may be an important factor in your purchasing decision.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that. And we'll actually talk about a couple of those apps before the presentation is over. So great for mentioning that. Thank you very much. So moving on, I believe we have a question for all speakers. We'd love to hear about what model EVs that are coming out that you're looking forward to. So I know Andrew had mentioned the Cybertruck, which I think is definitely one of the more out there models. Maybe kind of focusing a little bit more on the passenger vehicle side. But if you're interested in the larger trucks and whatnot, feel free to mention those as well. Andrew, do you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, so, like I said, I've had a Chevy Bolt, I've had a Leaf, and I've had a Model S, and continue to have a Model S now for 5.5 years. I expect I'll keep the Model S for about another 2 to 3 years, but I will be trading my Model S in for a Cybertruck. Actually, I'll probably be trading my Honda Ridgeline truck in for the Cybertruck. My wife is driving an aging Saab station wagon. She also drives cars until they die, and so this is a 2004 Saab wagon that has 160,000 miles on it. It needs to be donated to public radio at this point, I think, and so we'll be donating that car off and getting her a Tesla Model Y. I also expect in the next year or two, and that'll bring us from 3 vehicles down to 2 vehicles and 100% electric. So yeah, I'm super excited about the Model Y. Just came out, I guess, in the last maybe 6 or 7 months, and really looking forward to the Cybertruck.
Great, thank you. Barbara?
And so the question was in terms of the model that I have currently?
So basically, we were just asking if you were aware of any newer models that were coming out that you would perhaps maybe be looking to purchase. I realize that you and Crystal Marie both keep yours for quite a while, so no worries if you don't have one.
Yeah, I apologize. I had a feeling that was the question. I have not done the research on that because, I plan on keeping this for a while.
Sure, we completely understand.
As I mentioned, I want everyone to be an EV driver. So I'm excited about the affordable models that will make it more accessible to folks. It's great to have, the Teslas and those things out there, but the people that I believe who can benefit the most from an electric vehicle, the people that can't afford like consistent maintenance or gas for their vehicles, those are the people that might have the greatest benefit from these cars. So Teslas are cool, I get it, but excited about the Nissan Leaf, the Hyundais, the Chevys, the Kias, all of those things coming out.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and that's actually a really good segue into our next question, which an audience member asked about maybe if y'all have a couple words of wisdom about buying a used EV, or if you have any experience with that. I know a few of you have, or I believe it's Andrew who has the previous experience with them, and I know Barbara and Crystal Marie didn't as much. So no worries if you didn't have any.
Yeah, I mean, I could speak to more affordable vehicles. So, currently, the Nissan Leaf right now, I believe you can lease it for somewhere around $200 or $220 a month. And so that would be probably about the most affordable EV on the market right now. Hyundai also has come out with a Kona, which comes in different versions, a hybrid version as well as a plug-in version. I don't think the plug-in version is available in the Carolinas. I know somebody that went to Maryland to pick up a plug-in Kona and bring it back. One thing you may find when you look around is if you really get your heart set on a particular vehicle, you may have to go somewhere. In fact, even the Honda Ridgeline truck that I have now, I had to go to West Virginia, almost Ohio, to get it because I wanted a certain color and a certain interior and all that. So, it's not just electric cars that you may have to hunt for. I mean, if you really get specific on something, you can hunt for a number of things. As far as buying used EVs and saving money on used EVs, there's a number of online, websites like cars.com or autotrader.com. And if you look at the Atlanta area in particular, Georgia had a very large tax credit for EVs for a number of years. And a lot of those vehicles now are coming onto the used market as 3 to 5 year old vehicles at very good prices. Some of those vehicles I also see coming into the resellers like Carvana, and some of these resellers like Carvana will deliver them to you as well. So, there's now becoming options for used EVs. I think to Crystal's point, there's not, I would say, equity or equality in charging locations. So you do have to have an idea at least to think about, hey, where am I going to charge my car? How am I going to keep my car in electricity? That has gotten somewhat easier in that, at least in the Charlotte region, nearly every BP station now I think has a fast charger, or most of them do. So you're never more than, I would say, 4 to 5 miles from a fast charger, pretty much anywhere in Mecklenburg County at this point.
Great, thanks so much for that. Barbara, Crystal Marie, did y'all have anything to add?
No,
Okay.
just Carvana. My coworker purchased a used EV on Carvana. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but she raves about the excellent customer service experience that she had from them, and I've heard that from other folks as well.
Great, yeah, and it looks like there's been some activity in the chat mentioning a couple of different groups that, including Carvana, and then a couple that Andrew was mentioning as well. It looks like we have another question for Barbara, and you had mentioned taking your commutes and road trips into account before purchasing your Clarity. Did you try to map out a couple of road trips or your daily commute before buying your vehicle? And is this something that you would recommend for first-time EV buyers?
I would recommend it for first-time EV buyers. I do think that, at least in the comparisons that I made at the time, first it was more within the price range that I was looking for versus what was available at the time. And then secondly, all knowing that I could get on a single charge 42 between what I needed to get into Charlotte and get back north up to Davidson, that exactly fit the bill. And then I had accepted the fact that if it meant then driving into some longer road trips into West Virginia, I did not map those out because, again, it was a question of, navigating in a state that is not as aligned with alternative energy and being very concerned about not getting to something that was as frequent. And so in looking at that a little bit in the state, cost first, I'll be honest with you, in terms of that all electric, that was the first thing that pulled me back. But the second one is it was, I think Crystal used the word, it was great, range anxiety. I love it, that phrase. And so, yeah, I mapped that out and had pretty much estimated that I would literally probably fill a tank 3 times a year. That's it.
I would say for me, there's 2 big things that I've noticed. Number one is people overestimate how much range you need on your car. The average commute is relatively short. And even my partner who drives for work, he's in pharmaceutical sales, work, and sometimes he drives my car instead, and he covers 200 miles and he still has no issue. And most people don't drive that much, in their daily for the day. And so I think there's a lot of concern that once people own the vehicle, they realize this concern was a bit unwarranted. And then the other thing I will mention that is something that frustrates me to no end is that if you are looking for a gas station and you're traveling down the highway or the freeway, there are plenty of signs that will let you know where the gas station is. That is not available for EV drivers, although there are many charging stations that are available. If you don't, it's this very well kept, unfortunately, secret that there are many charging stations available to people. And I believe if we could do something to improve the visibility of charging stations, if you could see it right next to the sign for Hardee's or In-N-Out, depending on which coast you're on, and you knew that there was a charging station there, that might encourage people who are thinking about purchasing a hybrid or an electric vehicle. This may be within the realm of possibility for me. So I would encourage anyone who's thinking about it and who's really concerned about the lack of charging stations, I would just say, just know that many of them are there and you may not realize they're there. They're kind of tucked in the side of a gas station or behind a Barnes and Noble. And if you use some of the apps that I'm sure they'll recommend, you'll see that there are many more available and more as time progresses.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for that feedback. And we'll definitely make sure that any additional questions get steered towards our presenters. Just a quick note, actually, the Clean Cities program is working on adding or getting some sort of electric vehicle signage up. So just know that that is in progress, albeit a little bit slow, but we're hoping to roll it out soon in North Carolina. So stay tuned within the next year or two. You may start seeing some electric vehicle signs along your corridors and trips. So thank you again to all of our presenters today.
Real quick.
Of course.
I would strongly recommend taking a look at plugshare.com to see where chargers are. You'll look at the map and it will blow most people's mind how many charging stations are out there. If you're looking at Teslas, you can use either supercharge.info or tesla.com to see where the Tesla chargers are as well. They really are everywhere. They're hiding in plain sight. And I think to most drivers are kind of invisible because they don't have the giant, Exxon sign or Shell sign in front of them. But they're there. And it's just a matter of going online and finding where they are.
Great. Thanks so much for that. And thank you again to all of our speakers. I know we're almost at our time here, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly turn it back over to Stephen for our last couple words. Thank you all.
Awesome. All right. Huge shout out to all of our presenters. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Here is the contact information if you specifically have a question for one of them. We'll make sure to be sharing these slides with you all as well. So I'm just going to do a really quick wrap up. Thank you all again. A reminder to go out, test drive those vehicles, or if you know someone who hasn't driven an EV before, this is a great opportunity. They could even get $100. Here's just a quick recap of the dealerships participating. We have Hendrick Chevy. They've got some Bolts. We have Planet Mitsubishi. They've got Outlanders. It's a cool plug-in hybrid vehicle similar to the Clarity and the Volt. And then Tesla, of course, has Model 3s and Model X's and Model S's. All right. Well, thank you all for being here and have a great rest of your day.